Welcome back, Big Blue Nation, to another episode of the Cats Talk podcast. Jacob, Tyler is back from his 2-month vacation from the pod. It's great to see him. I actually had to go up to Maryland this weekend to make sure he was going to be on the pod for the next one. Unfortunately, we did miss the one after the Florida game because I was stuck in Maryland. 6 canceled flights, finally got back just in time to watch the Kentucky-Georgia game as well. 1-1 in our last 2. We beat Florida, 206 points scored in that game. Kentucky wins 106-100, comes out and lays a little bit of an egg on Tuesday at Georgia. We're going to break down the Florida game first. Jacob, what are you thinking?
Yeah, first off, welcome back, Tyler. I would say we missed you, but who knows? Yeah, Kentucky and Florida game of the year so far, right? Like obviously, there's a little bit of a wet blanket on it after last night's performance in Athens, but Saturday as fun of an atmosphere as I think Rupp Arena's had in a long time. 11 a.m. packed. Place was rocking the entire time. I don't think there was a controversy on stand or sit. I felt like the fans were up the entire game. Brea, 7 threes. Got really good minutes from just about everybody that played, including Almador had huge stretch there in the first half, especially on that 16-0 run. But yeah, Saturday was probably as fun of a day as you can have as a UK basketball fan, and then followed up with the little bit of a disappointment last night. But yeah, Tyler, what were your thoughts on Saturday's game?
Yeah, first of all, I thought Maryland was a fun time. I don't know what you're talking about, but I thought you waking me up and saying, "Hey, Tom, flight's canceled again." Yeah, I thought you enjoyed really harassing me for the last few days, but maybe I was wrong. Maybe you're back in Kentucky, you're back in your environment, clown. But getting back to Kentucky basketball here, against the Florida matchup, thought it was a really good game. Really impressed with the team on the floor. In terms of offensive production, a little bit high of a score for Florida, but it was good competition there. Another SEC matchup. Thought we shot very well. Had about 57.5% field goal percentage, almost 50% on the 3-point shot, and then 75% on the free throw shot. So can't ask for a better performance on the field, but again, kind of water under the bridge. Looking at the Georgia game right after that, so I'm sure we'll dive deep into that in just a minute, but.
Yeah, and Tyler, like you said, shot really well from 3, and that's something that Jacob and I had been, preaching for. We wanted to see that game where we shot really well from the 3-point line. And, as soon as Jacob and I bring up the fact that Kobe Brea goes under 50% from 3, he goes out and has that game like he did against Florida Gators. Let's see here. He was 7 of 9 from 3 in that game. Just incredible. So it feels like right now, anytime he shoots the ball, it's going in. And I don't know about you guys. That was just a game full of runs. I know Kentucky had 3 10-plus runs during this game. Man, it was just up and down. Great pace of play. Just what a great offensive showing from this team.
Yeah, and think about it like, Florida obviously, I think they got up as many as 11 or 12 there in the first half. Kentucky just answers with a 16-0 run like it's nothing, led by Ortega. They couldn't grab a rebound, it felt like, and I thought Amador probably played his best game as a Wildcat. He was getting to a lot of loose balls, had a huge steal that he was able to poke it away, get it up to Lamont that I think led to Ortega getting a bucket, like just making huge plays. So huge 16-0 run in the first half. Second half there was a couple times Kentucky I think had the lead at 10 at halftime, and then it was back to, Florida would cut it back to 3, and as soon as they did, it felt like Brea or somebody on that team just hit a 3, and then we would get a stop and get it right back to, 8 to 10. So game of runs, definitely. Probably, I think it'll be the most exciting basketball game that any two teams play this year. It was just high-level offense both ways. I had a couple stats just to kind of throw out there. I think I sent them to you guys, but just to demonstrate just how well Kentucky played offensively. Find it here. Yeah, Myron Metcalf put it out there from ESPN, but Florida registered 139 points per 100 possessions. That would have won almost any game this year, but Kentucky hit 147 points per 100 possessions. Just for reference, the Boston Celtics, the best offense in the NBA, averaged just over 120. So, just high-level offense from both teams.
Yeah, this offense was just on another level during during the Florida game. Unfortunately, the defense is what it is. Obviously, never allowing 100 points is you're losing 99% of those games when you allow 100. This is that 1%. But kind of speaking to what you brought up with Ainsley Almanor, I mean, you just look at the traditional stats, and it wouldn't show you, how well he played.
Yeah.
Didn't score in this game. Had 3 rebounds, which for Ainsley is good, especially only playing right around 12 minutes. But the plus minus, he was plus 20 in this game. That kind of just shows you how well he was playing. And he's kind of a guy that we've been talking about as of late, showing a lot more energy, willingness to play a little bit more down low, diving for loose balls and getting those rebounds. I've been really impressed with what Ainsley's been doing lately.
Yeah, and for me, it was just kind of the timeliness of it, right? Like, Williams obviously didn't get off to a great start in that game. Florida was getting to every loose ball and every rebound, and Amador, even though he only had 3 rebounds, I feel like they were kind of all in that one stretch, and then the steal, and then if I remember right, there was another play where he was diving on the ball to get to a loose ball. Like, that's just stuff we had to have in that time, and it sparked the offense.
Yeah, and I don't want to pat myself on the back or anything, but like you said, right before all these runs, Tyler is just like walking around the house, like not he's watching the game, but he's just walking around, not staying in the same spot. And man, once I got him to sit down in his seat, Kentucky goes on a run. Every time he'd get up, move around. I mean, we got to have some more accountability from this guy.
Yeah, we gotta get
I'm
some
going to need a
consistency,
hand
everybody.
up. Guess what? You don't move the seat. You get in there, we go on a run. You sit there.
16-0 run, 16-0 run, you don't move again.
Yeah, you sit there until the end of the game. Yeah. I think he's learned that. I made him sit down. We came out with the big win.
Yep. And
maybe that's the true reason why you couldn't catch your flight. Maybe you just need a couple more days of some wisdom from Cameron over here. I don't know.
Yep, that might be true.
Yeah.
I mean,
but to your point, Cam, of like you may not win a ton of games giving up 100 points. Like, we know what this team is defensively. Every game they've lost this year, it's because the offense has struggled. Like, this team's just, we're going to give up high 80s, 90s, a game in the hundreds. Like, but our offense, when it's clicking, I think we can be as good as anybody in the country. And then, obviously, we saw Tuesday night what it can look like when it's not clicking. But we just gotta. The defense is what it is. I don't know if it's going to get any better. So we're just going to have to plan on going out there and outscoring everybody.
Yeah, and before we dive into our game on Tuesday night, let's talk about another game that happened on Tuesday night. How about Florida just beating the bricks off of Tennessee, beat them by 30 points?
They gave up 106 to us, and then what if Tennessee 43?
Yeah,
like
43.
That's insane. Like, I don't know. I don't know how. I thought Florida would win that game, but to come out and beat them by 30 and just Tennessee was never in it. It was like 25-6, early in the first half. Like, it was never a game.
Yeah, just to put that in perspective, we scored more points in each half than Florida gave up in the entire game against Tennessee.
That's crazy.
The next game after.
We did this.
Why?
We did the same about Arkansas though on Saturday, so don't forget that. We can dive into that a little later because Cal had some interesting comments, so we'll come back to that.
Yep, we'll definitely come back to that. Just throwing out more stats here from the game against Florida. Kobe Bryant 23 points, Lamont Butler 19 points, Ortega Owe 16. I thought this was one of Amari's better games that he's had as of late. Had 15 and 8 in this game as well. I mean, obviously, when you score 106 points, you're going to have a lot of guys in double figures. But I mean, we had, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 6 guys in double figures. And the lowest of that group was Jackson Robinson with 14 points, 5 of 12 from the field. And unfortunately, we're going to dive a little bit more in depth about Jackson Robinson, especially from the Georgia game. But just, guys, your last takeaways from this Kentucky-Florida game where the Cats came up on top.
Yeah, real quick about Amari. Like, obviously, I've been pretty critical of him as of late. And I thought he got off to just a putrid start in this game. He was driving me crazy. Wouldn't get his hands up to rebound. Didn't feel like he was going to be able to play in this game. And to his credit, Pope pulls him out, sits him on the bench. And after Amari came out that first time, it was completely different body language, a completely different attitude. And then to your point, Cam, one of his better games here as a Cat. So huge shout out to that guy. He had me pulling my hair out for those first 3 minutes of the game, but after that, I thought he really played well.
Tyler, give me some of your takeaways from the Florida game, wrapping it up before we talk about Kentucky and Georgia.
Yeah, like I said, I was impressed with the offensive play overall. I think I mentioned it before in a podcast a little back. I feel like we're one of those teams that's going to win by the three, lose by the three kind of thing. You're going to put up big points. If you do, we're going to play competitive. And it seems, for the most part this season, it feels like we've gone against those tougher teams and we've played well against them. It is concerning when you do come up with a game like Georgia and you come up short, which we'll talk about in a second. But if we can continue to play these high level games and put up points like this, hopefully we can get some more defensive play out. But I'm excited to see what we can do against some other big team names going down the stretch here.
Yeah, and we're going to get ready into that Georgia game. I'm concerned about what this team is going to do on the road, especially in the SEC. 2 of their 3 losses have been true road games at Clemson, at Georgia. Teams who are not, predicted to, light up their league by any means, but we just got out-physicaled in both of those games. And obviously the blueprint to beat us is out there. Obviously you got to have the guys that are willing and able to do that. Georgia definitely did. I mean, Santos Cyril, obviously, a lot of Kentucky fans know him. He was committed to the Cats before Calipari left. Decides to go down to Georgia. I mean, he had 3 blocks that you're looking at, and you're like, man, this guy's about to be put on a poster. But he comes out with a block. And, I mean, Tyron Lawrence, he was good in this game as well. And so was Asa Newell. I mean, they had the guys to be able to do it. Kentucky obviously lost this game 82-69. Jacob, what was some of your big takeaways?
Yeah, obviously, I don't think really anybody played well for Kentucky other than, kind of early second half and for most of the first half, I thought Lamont looked really good. And then Brandon Garrison had that stretch where I thought he played his best basketball of the season. But yeah, as a whole, one of the worst we've seen this team maybe outside the first half at Gonzaga and then obviously the Ohio State game. And then the other thing that I really took away from it is just, I know we said it a million times coming into conference play, but just how damn good this SEC is. Like, Georgia's predicted to be one of the bottom teams in the conference, and they still have a guy that's going to be a top 10 pick. They got guys that can play out on the perimeter to go along with him, and then Surreal, obviously, who Kentucky fans thought of. To be honest, I don't know if there's a player at like a random school that's going to annoy me more than that guy. I couldn't stand him last night. But yeah, I mean, overall, just a giant dud from the Cats. Going back to Florida where I said, everybody kind of played well. There wasn't anybody I thought played bad. It was like the complete opposite, Tuesday night, just completely out-physicaled, completely outworked. Florida was getting every loose ball, Georgia was getting every loose ball. It felt like just, a complete flat performance. And, I think Pope talked about it the best. But, yeah, Tyler, what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off the last game here. I was just talking about how good the stats were, from the field there, and we come into the Georgia game, you slash that in about 20-25% off. You go from about almost 50% field goal percentage down to 37.5. You go down to a 24% 3-point shot, and the only thing you improved on was the free throw shot, and God forbid you win a game on free throws, that'd be great, but it's just not going to happen. So, I think the first mistake was not putting Trent Noah out there to shoot some threes. I think that's the first takeaway I have, but I had to throw that into the pod. Welcome back, guys. But, I look at someone like Kobe Brad, and, he goes 2 from 9 from 3-point range. It goes back to the point I made originally, which was you live by the 3, you die by the 3. And if you're not going to hit those 3 points, it's not just him, it's other people too. It's from the field, it's from the 3-point line. You're just not hitting the shots that you're used to making, Cam, like you kind of alluded to. When you make them at home, you got to make them on the road as well. If you can't do that, it doesn't look like we're going to win down the stretch, especially if we get to tournament play and we're playing neutral sites. Who knows? Maybe that bounces out, but it is a concern as we start to get into the season a little bit here.
Yeah, speaking on those free throws that you were bringing up, how about just the free throw differential? Georgia shot 38 free throws in this game, Kentucky only 19. Obviously, with the style of play that we have, we're not getting to the line as much as other teams are going to. Officiating wasn't great. I mean, I think everybody's going to say that. Obviously, even with proper officiating, we're not winning this game. I mean, we lost by 13 and we deserve to lose this game. But Jacob, what did you think about some of the officiating in this game? Because there was
Oh,
a good amount of plays. I mean, Jackson Robinson comes down to clear offensive rebound, and that kid's
Blue
got a
Cane.
clown name, whatever it was. Well, what was it? It was something.
Blue Cane.
Yeah, Blue
Yeah.
Cane goes flopping. I mean,
Yeah.
what? I mean,
All right.
what kind of name is Blue Cane? Like what? What?
Yeah, I don't. Dude, yeah, I mean, to your point, it was absolutely atrocious. I mean, again, I don't think that's why Kentucky lost. Like, they obviously didn't play well, but I mean, when you got Amari Williams getting drugged from behind going down, and you're calling him for an offensive foul on a rebound, like, he had 4 fouls early in the second half, 17 minutes to go in the game. Like that is going to make a difference in a game where you're struggling with physicality to begin with. Um, you know, but yeah, the officiating was just, it was bad. It was as bad as I've seen. But again, Georgia was playing more physical, so they were getting some of the, more calls driving to the rim. Um, Kentucky, obviously the style of play, they're not getting to the rim as much. And when our guys do get to the rim, they try to avoid contact. They try more of the finesse layups. In a game like this, it would be better just kind of go after them and, let the refs keep calling those fouls. But yeah, it was horrible. It was very, very bad. The three-pointer where they called that foul on Lamont, I mean, I feel like in college basketball, if somebody just falls down after a shot, they're going to give them free throws.
Yeah, officiating was not good in this game. It really, really hindered our front court. I mean, Andrew Carr and Amari Williams both had 4 fouls and were in foul trouble for most of this game. But I do think we got to dive into those two specifically in this game because, like we had mentioned, just a little prelude earlier, that BG played one of his best games of the year. But Andrew Carr and Amari Williams combined for 8 points and 10 rebounds. In a game like that, where you're going to have physical play, you need a lot more from those guys than what we got.
Yeah, and Andrew Carr admitted it. He had the quote something along the lines of like, "We're gonna have to, get tougher. We're gonna have to play more physical." And then he said something like maybe even a little nasty. Like that is kind of what this team's missing. Um, you know, Amari, like, it drives me crazy. It's just so much like with him, it feels like fundamental. Like I know I've talked about it so much on here, but it really does. Like it's like he's not boxing out. He'll be in position, but he's not doing anything. He doesn't get his hands up. He doesn't put his butt into a defender to box him out, and like, so there's never an over the back call. Like I don't know. Like he's got a good knack for the ball, but like he just doesn't do the fundamental things to grab it.
One of the things I think you're starting to see, especially with Amari in particular, is that jump up in competition that he's had coming from
Yeah.
Drexel. Just being the best player in your conference when you can rely on his pure athleticism and size like he did. I mean, you can get by without doing stuff like that, without doing proper box outs and stuff like that, and not going for balls with two hands. You
Yeah.
can't do that in the SEC. Every team's got somebody who's 6'11" and can jump out of the gym.
Yeah.
And honestly, Amari is limited athletically in the SEC. So he's going to have to be able to work harder, box out, form. I mean, neither one of our big guys know how to properly box out. Andrew Carr, I mean, you saw just in that play where he ended up on the ground with what looked like, I don't know if you saw the still photo. That guy's got him in a chokehold at some point on the ground. But I mean, even
Choke
that,
slammed him.
yeah, Andrew Carr really, his box out, he just like turns around and just like puts like a couple fingers on you. He's not even looking at the ball. So I think that's a big issue. And hopefully it's something that gets addressed because we've got a tough matchup with Mississippi State on Saturday.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean Mississippi State's looked really good so far. What last night they were beating Vandy by like 20. It was not awful this year at Vandy. Um, but yeah, Kentucky, they got to deal with the physicality. The other problem, like when teams are being physical with us, like our whole offense just kind of gets disrupted, and it gets to the point where we get late in the shot clock, and it's either Lamont or Ortega just going one on one with their man, and like that's not where this team thrives. Like to Tom's point of like live by the three, die by the three, and then he's saying like they're gonna have to shoot it better. I just think they're not getting open shots when teams are getting physical with them. I don't know why, and it's something that we talked after the Ohio State game, and it's something I hope that Pope can figure out. But like they're not shooting well because they're not getting quality looks. Like the offense, everything just bogs down and gets so disrupted, and then they don't get into any rhythm. I mean, they're shooting 24% from the 3-point line in all three of their losses on average. Like, it's not anything I thought any of us thought this team would shoot coming into the season outside of maybe a game. And it's just, again, I don't think it's because they're poor shooters or anything. I think the shot selection has to be so bad because we just can't get into a rhythm with these physical teams.
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about trying to get open looks and forcing open looks, and we've got to be able to finish down low. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't imagine, I can't even begin to imagine to tell you the amount of layups and dunks that we continuously miss. I mean, Lamont Butler would probably be averaging like 88 points a game if he could, just make his layups consistently. Otega Owe got blocked near the rim twice in this game.
Yeah.
One of those by Samto just met him at the rim. I mean, you can't have those be the only two guys that are a threat to drive either. That's just kind of why Kobe Bray is not getting as many open looks as you want. He's not really a threat to drive. Same thing with Jackson Robinson. And we got to have a bigger talk about Jackson a little bit later in this podcast because right now we're getting virtually nothing from him. Maybe a potential lineup change going forward, hopefully, but obviously, that is Pope's guy. I mean, you've got to be able to finish around the rim. And right now, there's no one that can finish through contact on this team outside of Otega Owe. Andrew Carr has his moments where he's able to do it, but he can't do it consistently. And I think that's what we really need to look forward to is more just physicality around the rim. I think will solve a lot of this team's problems.
Yeah, and to Jackson, the Jackson Robinson discussion, like he gave you nothing on Tuesday, like nothing. And to your point of like them not looking for physicality, they try to avoid it when they go to the rim. Like they're trying to go one side or another and just kind of avoid going into anybody's body. But think about what games Jackson Robinson's looked the best in. It's the games where the offense is flowing and he's getting shots throughout the offense. I mean, he scored 14 against Florida. The physicality not only disrupts the team, but it disrupts him because once he's going ISO one-on-one and trying to force, a mid-range jumper or get to the rim and throw something up, like it's just not the offense. Like coming into the year, we all obviously hoped that Jackson Robinson would be the guy that got you a bucket when you couldn't get anything going. Every team that wins a title has a guy like that. You're getting disrupted. You can't get anything going offensively. All right, we're going to throw the ball to this guy, and he's going to go get us a bucket. We were hoping it would be Jackson Robinson. It's pretty clear now it's not. Probably Otega is our closest thing to that. So, yeah, I mean, that's where this team's going to struggle is when things aren't going good offensively, who's going to be able to just go get you a bucket to end a drought? And right now we just don't have it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Lamont might be that guy. I mean, the only bad thing about Lamont is he seems like right now he can get to the rim with consistency. He's got a very quick first step, especially off the screen, something like that. But he just can't finish at the rim. And I don't know. I mean, I can't remember how many turnovers he had in this game.
He just looked
Let's see.
off. I mean, he was slipping and sliding. Again, I thought he played really well in the first half, but yeah, I mean, just uncharacteristic mistakes. Like that one, I forget if it was first or second half, but he's just bringing the ball up court, starts to slip, guy pokes it away, goes back and grabs it, and then just slips again. Like, just very uncharacteristic.
Yeah, I mean, his handles were loose all game, and he wasn't able to finish around the rim. And all that being said, I mean, still had, what I thought was a pretty quiet 20 points, 8 of 14 from the floor, 4 rebounds, had those 3 turnovers. But man, it felt like I don't know if it was just my opinion, felt like he was playing sloppy on both ends of the floor. He did get some nice steals, but man, was he gambling a lot? And for the most part, I don't think they paid off. I know I've listened to other podcasts of Kentucky fans, and for the most part, they just glaze over his defense. I haven't been that impressed with it personally. You can obviously tell that it's there. He can get steals when he needs to, but in my opinion, he's been horrendous at ball screen defense, and that's usually what loses us games is our ball screen defense. I'm looking to see a whole lot more from Lamont, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because I'm not expecting him to give you 20 points a game.
Yeah, I would disagree. I think he's obviously our best defender, and I think he's a good defender. But again, my issue with this team is not defense. Like if you tell me that we give up 82 to Georgia, I probably think we're going to win. We got to be able to score more. Like this team's going to win games in the SEC. It's going to have to score high 80s, 90s to win basketball games. It's just a fact. We can sit here and say we want the defense to get better and talk about it for we're 3 months into the season now. It's just not going to. They're going to have to learn to play with physicality and then learn how to continue to get their offense going when teams are getting physical with them.
Yeah, and we kind of brought up how Jackson Robinson has played during the 3 games that Kentucky has lost, kind of how hasn't shown up. How about Kobe Brea in those games as well? Kobe Brea scored 3 points, 3 points, and 8 points in our 3 losses.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm starting to think he might be that X factor of whether this offense ends up going for 100 or if we get stifled and score around 70. Because at any point, obviously, like you saw against Florida, Kobe can light it up and just turn that switch. But to your earlier point, we've got to get him those open looks because he's really not a threat to drive.
That's what I think it is. Like, if you look at it, I think we're going to consistently be able to just see how this team plays offensively, just kind of based on what Kobe Brea does. Because, again, when the offense is flowing and he's able to get those open looks within the offense, he's obviously going to, have good nights like Florida. But when we can't get anything going offensively and we're struggling, to get any open looks, Kobe Brea is not going to be a guy that's going to take his man one-on-one and rise up and hit a basket. So I think we can look at it just as the offense as a whole is not getting going for whatever reason, and it's usually because of some type of physicality.
Yeah, speaking on that physicality, we got to get these big guys out of foul trouble. I mean, you can't have both of them with 4+ fouls, especially, we only have 3 bigs. There is no, there's no fourth coming out. Ansley might be your 4th big, and Ansley's about 6'7". But let's go ahead and talk about BG and how he played in this game. Because like you mentioned, you thought it was one of his better games of the year. So did I. 13 points, 5 rebounds. This is his first really look at extended minutes, played 27 minutes in this game. And, he was physical. I mean, I think they reviewed just 3 of his plays in general for flagrants during this game, which these officials went to the monitor way too many times. It made this game end up being like 2.5, almost 3 hours long. Yeah. But give me a little bit of what you thought about Brandon Garrison's game.
I loved what I saw from him. He was, felt like kind of made the most of the opportunity with the other 2 bigs in foul trouble. When Kentucky had cut it to 5 in the second half after being down 12, in large part it was all because of Brandon Garrison. He had a huge putback on I forget who drove I think it was Lamont drove at the guy, and it got blocked, and BG was right there to grab the ball and put it in. He had a couple huge blocks. Obviously the 5 rebounds. I thought he provided an instant spark that this team desperately needed last night, and I don't know. When they cut it to 5, that was like the first time in the game I thought Kentucky was going to actually win. I hadn't felt good about it the whole entire game, and then obviously, to Georgia's credit, they bumped it right back up. But I thought BG was huge. He was, again, my only major takeaway from this game being a positive.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick an MVP of this game, I'm picking Brandon Garrison as well, especially when we're talking about how he had to play those extended minutes, 28 minutes. I don't know if he's played more than 20 in any game this year, just off the top of my head. So it's good to see that, if he is pressured, he can step up to that. And I think when we do play physical teams like we did with Georgia and Clemson, I think that's where you got to see more of Brandon Garrison rather than seeing Andrew Carr specifically. Because, he can talk in the post games about, wanting to be a little nasty, this and that. I don't think Andrew Carr has a nasty bone in his body. I don't think I don't think he's capable of it. I mean, the guy's a 50-year senior. If you haven't been able to become a physical player so far, I don't see it happening. At least with Amari, that is something that he brings to the table. I mean, we got to get something from these bigs. I mean, you can't just, like we talked about it just a little while ago, these bigs are what's going to determine what kind of shots the backcourt gets. Need a lot of help from them.
Yeah. And then, Mark Pope after the game talking about how, obviously it was an incredibly disappointing loss, but, he really kind of hit on the rebounding. I know it's something you've talked about nonstop, Cam, but, 15 offensive rebounds in back-to-back SEC games it's not a recipe to get a lot of wins.
No, not at all. And especially, that was something that we talked about. Like you said, I've been mentioning that all season. We were getting out-rebounded by the most random teams. WKU out-rebounded us for most of that game. Colgate, same story. I mean, we're going to have to find ways for guys to get rebounds. Obviously, in this game, the 2 bigs were in foul trouble, so there was a little bit of a reason. I mean, Otega Owe gave you 7 boards in this game, but outside of that, I mean, nobody else really gave you much. Jackson Robinson, like we said, only 2 rebounds. The lack of effort is kind of is what is getting to me from Jackson Robinson. I know he's a chill guy. You really don't see too much emotions from him, regardless one way or another. But man, I mean, he's got to show some effort. We really jumped on Amari for his lack of effort. I feel like it's time to do the same thing with Jackson Robinson. And honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing him move to the bench. I mean, I know it might be a confidence thing, but I mean, he was BYU's leading scorer last year and came off the bench. He knows how to score and thrive in that role. And like I told you personally, I want to see Kobe Bryant and Amari Williams on the floor together. I think that's where we're going to be spaced out the most together. That's what I want to see personally. I just kind of want to get your all's thoughts on potentially moving Jackson to the bench and Kobe to the starting lineup.
Yeah, I don't think Pope's going to make that switch, especially with the starting lineup. But I mean, I will say last night, like there were long periods of time where Jackson wasn't on the floor, and to your point, I think it was an effort thing. I think it was body language thing. That's one thing like about Pope. As much of like a player's kind of guy he is, and as much as they love him, we've seen him do it with Amari. Now we've seen him do it with Jackson. Like if you're not giving him your A+ effort, he'll sit you on the bench and he'll sit you there for a while. So I mean, maybe if it continues, he might make a switch for like the starting lineup. Um, I don't know if it's necessary. Again, I don't think Jackson's been great this year, but in vast majority of the games he hasn't been bad. He's just been disappointing as to what we've kind of hoped he would be.
Yeah, and for my opinion, I kind of just want to see Jackson. I just want to see him get that creativity back. I want to see
Yeah.
him, be able to create open shots. And I feel like with him in that starting lineup, with Ortega driving to the basket as much as he is, with Lamont holding onto the ball as much as he is, and Andrew and Amari kind of trying to dominate the paint, I feel like he almost can't get those looks, which is kind of
Yeah.
why I want him to run with the second unit. It's not more of like a demotion per se. I look at it as more of an opportunity to get more shots up, and that's what I want to see from Jackson. And obviously, he's comfortable doing it. Won Sixth Man of the Year at BYU. Tyler, what do you think about potential switch? Are you looking for something like that, or would you keep it the same?
Yeah, I think it's still too early to be moving pieces around just right now. I'm giving him a few more shots here, see how he does. But to your point, boys, I think Mark Pope's watching, and if you're not going to give full effort, maybe it's time to shift some people around, give him a start. Maybe that refocuses. Maybe that can refocus Jackson Robinson here.
Yeah. And Cam, I actually think you made a really good point. I was pretty skeptical of moving Jackson until you kind of worded it how you did. I mean, what were the games we felt like Jackson Robinson played the best in? It was second half of Gonzaga and the other game that Lamont was out. Like, to your point, maybe he just is more comfortable. I thought he looked really good kind of playing that backup point guard role. Um, especially with Kerr out, I would like to see him handle the ball a little more. Have him out there when Lamont's not out there. I feel like, to your point, that gives him that freedom, and those are the times I've thought he's looked the best this year. So, I'm not saying move the guy to the bench or anything like that, but I do agree with your premise of, we should probably find some times where he can kind of be the primary guy out on the floor.
Yeah, my big thing is it just feels like he's being lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
And we play positionless basketball in general under Pope's system, so why not move him to the bench? Like I said again, not as a demotion, but just to free him up, let him get some creativity. He's going to come in with guys. Like obviously with that move, Kobe moving to the starting lineup, but coming in with guys like Ansley and like BG. I mean, I think he's going to feel obligated to take more shots, look for his shot more. And especially at that point guard role, like you said, that's the best we've seen him. And, maybe not obviously full time point guard, but just that backup point guard, kind of giving those Kerr Kriisa minutes. Except obviously wanting to play more than Kerr did. But I think it's good for the long haul. Granted, it might be a little early, like Tyler said, for that move. But I think if you see the same things continue against Mississippi State, which is a top 25 team that we have to play Saturday at 8, then I think that's when you start to look forward to a change.
Yeah. And like you better be ready to go against Mississippi State. I didn't think they could go 0-2 in this stretch here on the road. You lost probably quote unquote the easier one. I mean, obviously there's no
Yeah.
easy games in the SEC, but like Mississippi State, that's a good team. They've given us issues a lot over the past few years. That coach, is obviously a guy that's going to make a game extremely physical, slow it down. You're going to play. He's going to do his best to make you play his pace and, not let Kentucky get out and run. So, I mean, if you thought Georgia was physical, you better be ready to go Saturday at 8:30 or 9 o'clock whenever they play.
Yeah, I mean Kentucky plays two hard road games and back-to-back SEC games. Obviously, something that SEC has been getting better year in year out basketball wise. But boy, did they take a leap this year. I mean, we're
Yeah,
talking about going from at Georgia, who's now 14-2, to going at Mississippi State, who's now 14-2 as well.
there's
And Mississippi State's scoring 83 and a half points per game, only allowing 64 points per game. So obviously, they got some defensive prowess to them. It's not like we're going to be facing our own defense. We're going to be able to throw up, 100, 106, even though you never know with this team. Honestly, sometimes I come in here after the Florida game. If we would have had a podcast, I might have been lifting banner number 9. I don't know.
yeah.
Luckily, I got to see the Tuesday game against Georgia to kind of bring myself back down to reality. But yeah, talk about what you're expecting to see from this Mississippi State game a little bit.
Well, yeah, obviously it's going to be a tough one. And to your point, real quick, I just feel like this is how this whole year is going to go. We're going to have games where the offense is clicking, and we beat maybe Auburn and maybe 2 games against Tennessee or something crazy, and then we're going to have a Tuesday night at Ole Miss where we can't make a shot. The team looks awful, and we score less than 70 points. So Saturday is another huge test for me. Like if Kentucky comes out and plays well and gets the win, I'm going to be right back to thinking, there's no reason this team can't go to a Final Four and win a national championship and compete in this conference. But like to your point, I mean, Mississippi State's not just beating people; they're rolling them. They beat Pitt earlier in the year by 33 points. They're 2 SEC games. They've probably played the 2 weaker teams, but again, like there's no bad teams in this conference. They beat South Carolina by 35 and they beat Vandy by 12. Like they're really good. You remember the game last year? It took a Reed Shepherd buzzer beater to beat them. Like they brought back majority of their pieces. And not to correct you, but they're 14-1. So
Yeah, that's where I was. That's where I was about to go. I gave him an extra loss to add.
Yeah, I mean, there's just like I'm looking at this schedule. There's just no easy nights coming up, ever. So, you're gonna have to steal a couple on the road, take care of business at home, and then maybe you can go 12-6 or 11-7 like we predicted. But yeah, Saturday is gonna be a rock fight. I'm actually excited just to kind of see how this team responds after such a disappointing game Tuesday.
Yeah, and we saw how they responded after that Ohio State game. They came out and they were able to beat Florida.
Yeah.
Hopefully, same type of response. Obviously, this is going to be Mississippi State's most attended game. Obviously, their fans are going to be ready. I mean, there's nothing to do in Mississippi, obviously. So I mean, you can just go down there, watch this game. They'll probably let you in for free. Who knows? Mississippi State basketball is not a powerhouse known for, anyways. Even though they are 14-1, and I mean they beat Memphis earlier this year as well. Yeah. Memphis has a good team down there, and man, I personally don't feel too good about this game. I don't like where the head of our team is at the moment. Even after that Florida game, we scored 106 points, but we allowed 100. I mean, that's like you said. You might not be worried about the defense, and I know the way in which you're saying that is that obviously the offense is what's going to carry us to a win if we do win these games. But we got to start being able to show a way that we can have an off night and score 81 points and win a game. We've got to be able to show ability to do that, and I'm just not sure if we're going to be able to.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't feel great about the game either. You can be a really, really good team and go and lose this game. 8:30 on a Saturday night in Starkville, like regardless, you're Kentucky. They're going to pack the place whether whether how much they care about basketball or not. But like this is a game that if Auburn was rolling into and they were getting that kind of environment, like a really good team can lose this game. Like it's a good team on the road, late night Saturday, environment's going to be rocking. So like, again, I don't feel great about it. I am excited to see maybe what the guys can do and if they can kind of answer some of those questions. But I mean, I'm not expecting Kentucky to go win on Saturday. I think we both predicted losses when we did our preseason SEC preview. I mean, but this is one, if you do go win, like, we felt like with Gonzaga earlier in the year, that'll show me a lot as well.
Yeah, and one thing I want to get to before we give out our predictions for this game, I do need to thank Mississippi State for being the only team in football that was worse than us in the SEC.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for that. That way we weren't the
So
worst.
is that what
Yeah,
we're playing for on Saturday? Who?
yeah, we're playing for. We gotta get there. We're losing to these football schools as of late. We lost to Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia. So we're losing all these teams that are making the college football playoff. So why not just go ahead and beat up on the team that was actually way worse than you in
Yeah.
football? Even
Yeah.
though football, I mean, it's still raising my blood pressure, and we haven't played a game for almost a month.
I do
Cam's
have
trying to butter them up.
yeah. I do have a couple things I want to touch on here before we kind of wrap up with the predictions. One is kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on. They asked Pope about the officiating, and I'm reading the quote, but he says the staff is doing an in-depth study on officiating in Kentucky's first two SEC games, and then he added that we need to learn about the whistle. He said, we are interested in the rules that are being called. The whistle is not going to win or lose us a game, but we can use it to our advantage. Is he just like the most like PR friendly guy to say like these officials have sucked and we got to figure out how to play around this shitty officiating?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's basically what he's saying. I think he's also trying to not piss off any officiating
Yeah.
groups by saying that they were that bad. And obviously, these basketball refs, they travel by conference. So I think he's trying to look and see, are they letting more of these fouls go? Are they letting, just run of the mill, back screens, cuts like that? Are they allowing them to be more physical, or is this going to be a conference where everything is called? Because in this Kentucky Georgia game specifically, almost everything was called until like a 4-minute span. Then they would call nothing for no reason. And I think that's more what he's looking forward to. But even though the guy's definitely been PR trained. It might be the best PR person you've ever heard. He could tell you, go to hell, and he'd find a nice way to say it. So that's what I thought of those comments.
I agree. And then, like, to your point, he knows how to do it without upsetting the officials. And I don't know, hopefully it'll kind of help us down the line. And maybe Mark Pope will become buddies with all of them. But then, yeah, before we get out of here, we got to talk about, obviously it got spoiled a little bit because we lost last night, but we got to talk about our buddy in Fayetteville, right?
Go for it.
So, yeah, how about that? They go out, they get absolutely rolled by Tennessee. Some things don't change. Cal cannot beat Rick Barnes, especially in Knoxville. Like, the more things change, the more they stay the same. Scores 52 points. His offense has no idea what they're doing. They look clueless. They look lost. And they played at 1 o'clock, noon Central Time. And he comes out after the game and was like, yeah, well, we didn't do a shoot around. Our guys kind of just woke up and headed to the arena. And then you got Mark Pope on the other hand playing 11 a.m. against Florida, and he's like, yeah, we got it. We practiced all week, earlier shoot arounds. We, had 11 a.m. practices to make sure that these guys were ready to go for the early game. Like, it's just night and day. And then Arkansas also just lost at home to Ole Miss. So, I mean, as disappointing as last night was, I mean, there is some not so happy people in Fayetteville. And I don't know if you saw a picture of that arena during the game, but it was like half full. They are not excited.
I mean, that's kind of Arkansas fans really didn't show up for the first couple games, regardless of what the outcome had been anyway. So I wasn't expecting Arkansas fans to show up, even though for the longest time, Arkansas fans and Kentucky fans were just going to war on Twitter for about 2 months.
Arkansas was one of the best fan bases in the SEC for years.
Yeah. I'm not sure what happened. They have just completely bailed. Their football program has bailed for the most part as well. But like you said, I mean, thing is, John Calipari did that 2 years ago against Tennessee when he was at Kentucky.
SEC
I think
tournament.
You're just seeing, the lack of enthusiasm in a job. A guy who's already been put into the Hall of Fame and really is just starting to collect checks at this point in his career.
It's so sad to me. I mean, again, you know how I felt about Cal early on. I loved him. But, like, to see the guy that he's become, like, he just doesn't care. Their whole coaching staff doesn't care. They're just it's sad. I mean, he's been there for 3 months. Well, I guess coming up on a year since he got hired, but, like, just completely checked out. And then they dress him up in those god ugly suits and prance him out there like he's supposed to be the savior, and it is just not working, and it's not gonna work. And I don't care if we lose every game until then. February 1st, we're gonna kick the shit out of them.
Well, I'm gonna stop you there. I do care if we lose every other game between now and then.
No, I know. I'm saying
Yes.
even if they do, I'm still going to think Kentucky's going to win that game by 40.
Yeah, but that might be one game where Calipari actually puts together a game plan. That might be the only thing that he's working on.
He doesn't
Probably
know how to
not.
put a game plan in.
Yeah, you might not be wrong on that one. All right, guys, let's go ahead and let's dive into these score predictions. Jacob, I'm gonna start with you. Obviously, we've been talking about how we don't really feel good about our chances in this one. Why don't you start us off?
Oh man, I'm gonna hope I'm wrong. This is one of the ones where I'm hoping my tally and the predictions that you put out change. God, it's gonna kill me to say it, but yeah, Mississippi State wins. I'll say Kentucky's a little better offensively, but just not good enough, and I'll say we lose 88-81.
All right, I got my prediction written down before we started this podcast.
Is that what you had?
I had 89-81 Bulldog.
Oh, wow.
So
Hopefully
either
we're
great
wrong.
minds think alike or idiots think alike. I'm not sure which one. Tyler, go ahead and give your prediction for this game.
Yeah, look, I mean, kind of hit on my take here. They lost to Clemson on the road here. They lost against Ohio State, but they both games afterwards they came out with a win afterwards. So, looking at the last game here, they just lost to Georgia. I'm hoping they can pull one out here, come up top. But much to what you guys said, UK, I think their offense might be a little bit better, but their defense hasn't really been showing up. They haven't been good on the road here. I'm going to give them a little bit of a lower score here. I'm going to say 78-88 Mississippi.
All right. So, unfortunately, the whole panel has the Cats dropping one in Starkville. I will say, I have found out a little bit of something. I was talking about how Tyler wouldn't sit in his seat, and, that's kind of something that I need him to do. Well, I've done the same thing for 2 of these losses so far this season. I will make sure on Saturday I do not do it again, because if the Cats win this game, I know exactly what not to do to get them a win.
Well, what have you been doing? Let's hear it. What's the superstition?
Well, let's put it this way. I have watched the game with a certain somebody. At the game, we have DoorDash food. No free plugs to DoorDash. But I'm telling you, two games, 2 losses, Clemson, and then this game against Georgia. So can't do it. Saturday, I'm putting it to the test. Cats win.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cam, I just want to say a superstition I have. The Cats are undefeated when you're in Maryland.
Fair point. You might just have to move.
I got an extra room, pal.
and real quick, before we get out of here, we got to take a second just to talk bad about Tyler. Has anybody given a worse prediction than his prediction of the Florida game? Not only did he pick the wrong team, but he picked like a low-scoring game, and it turns out to be 206 combined points, and he had like 70-60 as his final with Florida losing, or with Florida winning. So wrong on every aspect, and I was
also wrong on the Ohio State game, and that worked out in our favor too. So as long as I'm wrong, but we win, I'm fine with it.
In whose favor?
You're right. My bad. Hand up on that one.
If there's one thing that I've come to expect of my many years of knowing Tom, it's that his takes are awful. Calling terrible Tom, terrible take Tom. I mean, this is
hook him, Tom. Hook him.
Everything that's known. Obviously, hook him on Thursday.
Horns down.
Nope. Also, I do want to end the podcast on some good news. Just saw this before we got on the podcast. Dickie V, cancer-free, set to make his ESPN return here soon.
Boy, Dickie.
Great news to see. Man, I have missed college basketball without Dickie V. And obviously, with the loss of Greg Gumbel, March is not going to be any easier. Yeah. But, man, it's going to be a lot nicer seeing good old Dickie V back announcing some games.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. That is it for us on the Cats Talk podcast. We'll be here after every game unless I get stuck in Maryland again, which I don't plan on going, hopefully for the rest of my life. That being said, subscribe to the Cats Talk podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, TikTok. We're everywhere, on everything. I know Boyers has got the Twitter, the X going, firing up stuff all day long. That being said, hopefully all of our predictions are wrong and the Cats win on Saturday. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue.